everybody, welcome. It's Kate Quinn from FabriKated Quilts. I am very excited to be back. This is part 2 of my progressive border development class. So I've got a couple of additional ideas. We're still using the sampler set. So if you have that set, that will be something you can use to do any of the designs that we have today. And as always, the basis of the design, I try to explain how I came up with the idea and how the template inspired the idea. So if you have a different template, that you still can use that and create something similar to that even with what you have at home. So I always explain, hopefully you can make the leap and do whatever you have. Hi, I'm going to say hi to a couple people. I got Sue Quills here. She's from England. Peggy Grayson from Beaverton, Oregon. Hi, Sandy Gray. Hi, Gisela. We have so many great places. It's so fun to see where everybody's from. So already we have 82 people. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We won't delay. Okay, so right now I want to show you real quick what I've got. This border is approximately, let's see, sweetie, could you grab the long yellow ruler over there? Let's see what size. I know this part right here is 4, but I want to let you know what this space is. It's about 6. So let me show you. Not quite. It's just under 6 right there. So the line is right here. Okay, and then there's the 6. So there's about a 1/4 of an inch differential right there between the two. Does that matter? No, it doesn't matter. If your space is narrower, but your border is actually 6 inches, that's fine. You can just put these in here and they can just be inside. So what I've done is I've marked the center line here and my 4-inch square is marked along that center line, right? So as I went, if this was where the ruler started, I can just put the 4-inch on there and just mark that. And then I'll just move down and this one will butt right up to the next one right through the center. The reason that I chose this 4-inch size, today we're going to use the circle template, the 2-inch circle from the sampler set. And of course, 2 is an appropriate measurement to fit on this 4-inch square. It's going to fit exactly. So if I had a 6-inch square on the inside here, which would make a really wide border, then I could use a 3-inch clamshell. So there's many different ideas for how you can adjust it. You can even just do a shallower arc. So let me just show you what I mean. Let's say I want to put these 2 humps in there. I could make this one shallower. I don't have to use all of it. If I do it shallower, I could just make it meet at the middle. So then I could have a shallow arc and then I would line up and I would do another shallow arc. But the 2-inch is going to fit very precisely in this space. And so then you can see how I'm making that decision. So you can make an adjustment. You don't have to use exactly what I'm using, but you could make your ruler fit and you could have a deeper arc or a shallower arc. Okay, so let's start right off with that circle. It's right over there, honey, on the table behind you. I was practicing over at my desk. Can you tell? Thank you. I appreciate you. I like to think I'm organized, but it's creatively organized, right? So when I sew this, if I had, a longer border, I would just do more of it, obviously. But since we're right here, I'm going to start right here. We're sewing on what would be the leg of the square. Okay, this is the square and we're sewing on the leg. This is what is measuring at 2 inches. So this right here, this is not 2 inches. This is a much longer. This is the diagonal that's about 5 3/4. So make sure that whatever you measure, you're using the correct relationship as you sew. Okay, so that being said, if this is the 4 and we start right at the corner, let me get a couple. I have to press a few buttons. My machine is talking to me again. All right, here we go. So I'm using my rainbow thread, which I love, and I've just got plain on the back, and that'll be nice because that'll let you guys see just the plain stitching on the back without a lot of extra detail, but you'll get the pretty on the front. I do have a new bobbin in here, so it's kind of being a little bit ornery. There we go. All right, I'm lined right up, and let's pick up that thread. And I keep pressing wrong buttons today, right? But at least I have pretty fingers. That's the key. Okay, let's put our ruler in before we set our needle. So we'll line him up, and I want to make sure those grips are down. Can you see my grips are up? Flip it over. I got the ditzy going on today, huh, right? I don't know what's going on. All right, threads underneath, and let's get lined up. So I'm going to tuck him right in. I'm looking right back here to line up the needle, so I'm right in the middle, and then I'm going to sew that portion of my circle. Let's see. So you can see right here, he's going to sew a little bit outside the boundary, but remember that this is a square out here. This is not the end. So you'll see there's a little overlap right here. That's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. Don't get distracted. Okay, so based on the spacing, he should be able to come right in to this intersection right there, because it's exactly, should be exact measurement right there. If he's a little bit off, I'm just going to do a little adjusting, get him in there, and sew this next one, right? So I'm going to adjust my foot height because I actually have double batting on here, so I need to move this up so I can move a little bit. He's kind of full. So let's just keep going. We'll go down here, and then we're just going to go that way. That way it's more smooth if we just kind of keep going in a straight line. So line him up over here on the back, pull him all the way forward, and we'll just sew the next one. There we go. Now I can move a little more easily. Okay, and then we'll get right down to the next one, right there. Oh, did I do it backwards? Oh, I did. Oh, you guys. Let's cut it. There's our first bonbon of the day. Oh, okay. I'm going to show you a picture so I can get myself squared away over here. Can you get the pictures that are right there on the table and then the ones that are printed? Thank you, thank you. There we go. Okay, here's what we're going for. Right, so what I did right now is this is the inside of this square, and on this side, I need to reverse it. So we're gonna sew inside the square each time. So we're gonna just ignore that right there. I'll just put a little mark on it with my pen, so we'll know that that's to be ignored. And again, this is bonbon time, right? So we'll just take it out at some later point right there, okay? So the picture is going to be like what I just showed you. I'll put it up one more time. We're creating this inside that 4-inch square, and we're doing 2 sides at a time. So right here in the center, let's just start right there, and we'll just switch it over. So you're going to have to flip and look at the square each time. So I'll tie this off since this is where we're going to connect. That'll make sure that these threads will be tacked in, so later on when I rip out those other ones, then they won't go anywhere. So we'll get right to the corner of the square, and then we'll do this other side. So switching, lining them up right here on this alignment. Let's turn it so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so we'll sew into this side. Okay, and then we'll come down to the next one. So right in line, maybe a little smushing. We want to try to get right to that corner. Okay, now we're inside the square, right? That's what we said. So when we do this side, you're going to get a really cute little crossover right here. So let's get lined up. We're right in the needle alignment and we're right in the middle of that square. In order to make this continuous, I'm not going to finish out this side. You would go all the way across. So when we get to here, we're going to do two sides of this square, and then we would come back and do the other sides. So we'll try to fudge that a little bit so you can see it. I only have one square here for me to play with because this is not a big space. Okay, here we go. Okay, so just so I don't mess up, I'm going to turn it towards you and show you what needs to happen. So this is one square, and now this part is the next square. So this triangle right here, nothing goes in there. So when we're going to align on this line right here. All right, and we would get down to the bottom. Right, and then one more would bring us right into that bottom space. All right, so what I'll do here is I'm just going to go straight up to the top, and then we'll just come back this way as if this were the other side. So let me take this tape off so we can make a straight line. There we go. So usually I make a little pull tab, but this guy's ripped up a little bit. So we'll put in a clean piece on there. All right, now remember that this straight line, there's some overlap in there. So I'm just going to kind of come out over here and just come up on this side just to be out of that design space. So then let's get reoriented. We'll get another piece of tape so I can put my circle back together. All right, so remember this is the line and this is going to intersect right over here. We want to try to get right back to the beginning. So I need to make sure I'm all the way up at the top. Okay, and then we'll line this up. I don't like to line up on the tape. Can you see that? I'm constantly shifting it, but I want to see a little better. So I think I can see better where there's no tape. Now, we should try to get right into the center. So we're going to just do a little bit of smooshing. Oh, maybe a lot of smooshing right there, huh? We'll try to see what we can get. So let's get right in. It's going to overlap a little bit, and that's normal. We do want that. And let's see if we'll try to fudge it a little bit and get right to the corner. Okay, so this is what we've got right here. Let's pull this off. I want you to see what that little overlap looks like right there. So this is the square right here. This is one part of the square. And you're going to get this little overlap on each of the intersections right there. So you'll see it a little better, but we already have partial intersection right here. And then we're going to sew this one, and we'll go down. So we'll have a few of them to view, and we'll try to ignore that one right there, which was a bonbon. All right. Now, let's talk about if this was on your quilt. So let's say I had 4-inch on-point squares in my border. This would be a great design that you could use for that. What if I didn't have that? What if I had just blank border? Then you could just mark it off yourself and that would be fine. You can still create this look even if you didn't have a 4-inch space. Okay, so I think one more stitch right there. And now we're going to switch. Remember what we said as we're going this side, has to stay on the inside. So let's go ahead and we'll finish that up. Let's see if I'm lined up at the back. Yeah. It's a little bit hard to see. Right here at the back, I want to get my needle right in the same line right there. Okay, so here's that overlap right there. So a little bit tricky now. We want to come right in. Let me show you the intersection. Right there is our intersection, right? It's this and this. They're both coming in together, and this is nothing right here. We're ignoring that. So if I need to make just some small adjustments so I can try to get right in that spot, I will. Maybe one more stitch here I think will give me a little bit better fit. And of course you can use your spacing gauge, you know that, if you want to. That'll help you make sure you can make any adjustment if you need to. Now we finished the center square, okay? Let's see, can you guys see that? Let's see if we can make sure you can see it pretty well. Let's turn it. I'll let you look at it and then we'll sew a little bit more. Kind of want to make sure you're getting the idea because it's hidden a little bit because we're working on two different sides. And I'm thinking I might just pull these stitches out because we don't want these to be a visual distraction real quick. Let me see if I can just get a line on these real quick so we can pull some of them. Oh, that double batting does make it harder because it's so fluffy. There we go. There we go. We can just pull a few of these out because we don't want it to affect our final design and what you're seeing. So I'm just going to real quick try and see if I can get some of these out. Are you a good ripper? I'm a good ripper. I think when you make as many mistakes as I've made, you get really good at this tool. I have to say that it's kind of my friend, you know. It used to be like you would make a mistake and you'd be in your mind, oh no, everything's ruined. And now with my friend, the ripper, I don't feel like that. I can just keep on stitching, right? Let's cut these two.
So Catherine asked, why do you have double batting?
Catherine, it's a good question. I have double batting because I wanted the texture of the design to show more vibrantly. I wanted it to be more powerful. And I think that when you add a double batting, it really increases the loft for you. So can you see now what we've got? We've got, this is that center square at the 4-inch, and this is what that overlapping there would look like. And then I've got a couple of ideas how we're going to make this a little bit more exciting. So this is the last box section. So let's put the circle back on and we'll just finish that part. We only have 2 more half circles to go. Lining him up right on the line. And then this is that overlap right there, and he'll finish up right here. Okay. Okay, so I'll just pull this out. Now, if I wanted the square to show more than I do right now, then I would go back and I could easily ditch that area. So let's turn it just so you guys can see it, and I'll cut some of these threads so we don't have any threads in our way. So what do you think? Do you think that would be kind of a fun border? It does have a lot of movement, and I think that the spacing would show even more if we ditch it. So let's do that. That's a basic task, and I think there's always some good information to learn when we're ditching. Right here, we would ditch all the way down and all the way back, and then we can just go around the other way. So right here, let's get to the corner. We have one stitch. When you line up for ditching, if this was a pieced block, then I would be really careful to make sure I'm stitching in the ditch side. That means if there were 2 layers, We'll just simulate it right here with just some fabric. Let's pretend that this was a seam, right? We're going to have the high side of the seam, which is this part. Can you see it? Yeah, I'll scoot it up a little bit. So right here, if this was the seam, this top layer where the fabric is pressed this direction, this is the mountain, and then right here is the valley side right there, okay? We want to always try to stitch in the valley. The reason why is there's so much more material on this side. This has got the top layer, then the 2 folded seam layers and the bottom, plus all the batting and the backing. This is a much thicker area. If I stitch in the ditch right here in the valley side, then it's going to be much easier to align, plus I can also hide it. So when I would line up with my spacing gauge, I want to line up with my spacing gauge so that he's right next to the ditch like that, okay? So if I'll just kind of hold it there for a second, maybe move this out of the way, right? So you wouldn't want it over into the mountainside, you want it in that valley. And then you could stitch right along the valley. And if the valley changes sides, which is quite common in piecing, then all you have to do is just take 1 or 2 stitches and you would move over to the other side. So here we'll try to get it lined right up. And hopefully I'll be able to close my arcs because that is the goal. I'm right at the intersection point right there. And then right down here, I'll line it right up and I'll come right down. Now, in this case, I do like that I'm going to be ditching the square because I want the square to show. I think that is an important piece of this design. Even if we're just quilting it in there and it's not pieced in there, I still think it's a very pretty element and that it's going to accentuate the design overall. So whether that's a pieced in square or that's a square that you're marking and you're ditching, I think it's going to add a lot to the design. Okay, and we'll just finish off all the way down here. And then once again, we're kind of off of the edge right there, so we'll just kind of stitch around out here just to get us back to the other side. If I went to the end of my border, I could just stitch along the seam of the border or outside of it. And you can see now that this is really starting to give a lot of definition. You can see right here too that you're getting that a little bit more puff now that we have this ditching in there. Okay, so let's get to the top of our design up here. And we'll put the rest of that in. Pretty easy to do this either direction. You know, it's not too complicated. You should be able to get both directions. And then we'll just keep on going all the way down to the bottom. So because we're stitching straight, I'm going to go ahead and put in a little comment right here. This is about as far as I would want to go. I like to have 2 fingers on the end of your template. We never want to be playing ruler chicken by sewing right to the very end of your template because that's when you fall off the cliff. And I don't think that that looks so good with your designs. So here, let's go back this other direction. We'll get aligned right here in the center, which will close our design, close our square, make everybody pretty. And then we're going to talk about the progressive fill for this space, the progressive design elements that we may want to add.
Could you remind us what size were those squares?
The squares are 4 inches, each of the interior squares, right? So this piece right here, let's get us into that center. So let's go ahead and we're going to sew right back to this intersection, and then we have some options for how we can add some pieces in. And I'm actually going to go ahead and cut this because I have them on paper and I'm going to let you decide which one you want to see sewn out. Okay, so then you guys can make those choices. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We've got this cute little space with a little frame. There's so many things we can do with it. We could just leave this, and here you could just put an echoed frame right here in these triangles, or you could put a curve right here, and that would fill in these spaces right here. You could do piano keys with straight lines right in that space. So many options. But the option that we're going to talk about right now is filling in maybe something else in this square and giving you a couple of options for this. So you can then play with whatever you may want to do out here on the edges. So let me grab my paper. Here is one idea. Okay, this is using the Spinifex number 4. And you would be able to stitch this in at the same time that you are stitching these clamshells. Because when you get to the middle, you could align this right at the same point when your needle is here. So this would be continuous. Another option is to put this plus in and put this design in the center. So what that would look like, let me grab it, hang on just a second. So these would touch the outer edge, just to clarify right here. Your needle would start here, and you would align the edge of your template along the center. But see how there's a little opening in the middle? These would not touch. So this would be sewn here, and then you would go this way, and you'd put this in, and you'd do the next one. So these would all be done as you are stitching those arcs in there, the 2-inch arc. If you wanted to come back and add a different element and you did not want to start right at these points, I want to show you another idea that you have. So the first thing I'd want to do is I would put my crosshair on there and I would mark my straight lines. Okay, and I don't know if my square is very square, but we'll see. Oh, I need my 8-point crosshair, which is this one. So you'd line that up on your 4, get your lines, and the only lines we're really concerned about essentially are these ones. So we'll just kind of fudge them right now. Ooh, they're way off. Darn it. That's okay. We're just going to go with it. So let me just make that center mark right there. So this is how you could play with your stitching line discs if you want to see what kind of different ideas you can put into a space. You can just get out these little awesome gems, and you're going to go ahead and take your template and let's play with it.
So can you move the paper up and show the whole?
Yeah, let's scoot
since you made those marks.
Let's scoot this out a little bit. There we go. That's better, I think. Okay, so on the other one that we showed you, we aligned this right on the line and we sewed it. So the back here did not touch anything. If I align this at the center like this, and these would not be continuous, right? They would be different than the other design, then this kind of would fit right into that space like this. And then we could rotate. It's a Spinifex, so we would line it up. We'd be here at the center, and we'd be lined right up in the middle, and we can put the next one in. And then rotate our Spinifex, and we could sew this one. And he kind of would not really cross over that much, maybe a tiny bit, but I'm thinking he would not. I think he would fit in there really nicely without a lot of overlap, just because of the size. So you'll get that little petal in the center, and then this is basically the look that you would get. So this is that Spinifex number 4 originating right at the center, and I think he would just tuck right into this space pretty nicely, and I could even just shore him up a little bit just to make sure that he did fit in there, right? Because we're using the discs, you know, it's hard to be 100% accurate. So this would be an alternate for this design. So this is option 2. Okay, I'll just write that on here. Okay, so that's option 2. And then just to show you what option 1 was again, right here. Okay, this one is option 1. And this is where he originates right at the bottom here. So he would be sewn at the same time as all of the arcs. That's important for some people because you want that continuous design. And this, by making him start there, you get a little overlap here, but this part would be continuous as you're sewing. You would be able to go ahead and put those in and get half of your square, and then you would do these two as you came back the other direction. So that's option 1. And then I have one more idea for that center position. Now this would use another template, not this one. This was the Spinifex number 4. So we've got one more option. So this is the 3-inch clamshell, and it's bigger than these two. Let me lay this on here and I'll show you how much bigger. Okay. If I lay my 3-inch clamshell right on there, he should have essentially that 1/4 inch spacing. Like, it's not perfectly aligned, but there you go, about that. Do you see it's about 1/4 of an inch? So if I put this on and I come back and I can sew this as a continuous, I'm going to show you a little, like a little echo that you can do. Okay, and the way I would do it, let's go ahead and we'll start from this square boundary. Okay, so I'm going to sew, but I'm going to only echo right there. So there, I'll align this one. We want to kind of just echo that, and we'll come back here, and then we'll come back out a little bit. So this is what that looks like. Do you see you kind of get a little echo right in there? But now our foot is back here, right? Because we stitched backwards. So now when we do the next side, we'll line it up the same. And this time I'm going to go echo on this side all the way to the border, and then right here, leaving my 1/4 inch space right there. And then I'll do this next side. Okay, and all the way to the outside and touch, and then come back, and there's that little 1/4 inch of space right there when I stitch back. Okay, and so that would be, you'd do 2 sides and you'd go all the way down. So you do your next square and you would just make that continuous. So you would travel right here to get to the other side of that square, and you would continue it. So what it's going to look like, let's just finish the design so that you can see it. When we are on this side, we will line it up right in the middle, and we're going to come all the way to the outside boundary, and then here, leaving that 1/4 inch space right here. And when we line it up on the next one, we'll come all the way in, and then we'll come back and we'll leave that 1/4 inch of space. So this is going to fill in this design a little bit more than the other one. There's not going to be a lot of leftover space. Okay, there's not going to be as much open area, but I love it. I think it looks so pretty. So here, and then we can either travel in the boundary to get to wherever we need to, or do the next square. We're doing 2 sides at a time. Can you guys see what that looks like? Can you see the shape of that? Doesn't that look so awesome? It's really pretty. So this is option number 3. And of course, we are stopping in the middle, but we don't have to stop in the middle. You can come in and you can touch and then come back, and then you would get the crosshatch if you did that. If you touched and you came all the way back each time, then you're going to get this crosshatch in the middle right there. So that would be option 4 with the crosshatch. So just right away, just using a few templates, we've shown you so many awesome ideas. And that is just playing around with it, right? So you guys like number 3? I think most people have said, I got a lot of 3s, or number 2?
Yeah, so it's 15 to 7 in the 2 versus 3.
You guys, this is how organized my husband is. He is tallying up your responses. And he says number 2 has
but the crosshatch is getting a lot of gusto here also.
Okay, yeah, because you didn't see the crosshatch before. Okay. All right, so what do you think? I'm going to let Honey pick based on what he saw. Okay, but you could try all of these, okay? This is so fun, and this is just playtime. This is you saying, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just use what I have and I'm gonna be creative. So right here, I've already got these center lines right here. So number 2 is the one that fits right in the middle, where we start right at the center. And I want you to look at this really quickly. I'm going to hold it up. Notice that the lines that we have on here, these diagonal lines, they're not the ones that we need. We need this line and this line, right? Because we're trying to use this wide space right here. We're not trying to fit it in here, although we could. That could be another option. But this is open right here. So if we go from the center and we align the template, we could line it up right on that. We don't even need to mark it if our needle is in the center, because this can be the reference line already. Okay, so let's just do that, and we'll just do one of those, and then maybe we'll do the crosshatch on one of these, just because people seem to like that idea as well. So this one, again, this is the Spinifex number 4. This is option 2, where you're starting in the very center of the design. This is not continuous. You would have to end up doing your Spinifex in the center of each square. So, which is actually pretty easy, because these are so easy to tie off at the center. Now remember what we said, we're not orienting it this way, we're orienting it that way. So let me show you. There's my center line, and I'm going to try to line up the back as well. So let me see if I can see the back. So sometimes if you have visibility issues like I am right now, you might want to go ahead and put some lines in there because it's hard to see. So right there, let me just show you with my spacing gauge what that spacing is going to look like. Right here, it is just inside that 1/4 inch. So I'm going to adjust it and make sure both sides have it even. Right? Because I think he'll fit in there just perfect without any overlap. I must have hit my speed button on my machine because it's going so slowly. Okay, so I'm right in the center. Oh, he fits so perfectly, you guys. I can't wait to show you. Okay, so let's get lined up. We'll do the next one. I'm just going to keep these threads out of the way, and I'm checking that back position. And I'm trying to get everybody lined up as neat and clean as I can, because I don't want him to stitch into that space because the other side didn't either. So it seems a little bigger on one side than the other. So let's take one little stitch, and that's just fudging right there. Just one stitch backwards, and now I know that he's going to fit in there. Isn't that crazy? Just one stitch can make that much of a difference, but it can. And that can be really important to giving the design the look that you want to have. And there in the center, nobody's really going to see that because there's going to be a lot of stitching there anyway already. So let's go to the next one. Getting lined up right on the center position. And let's see if we can get this back one aligned as well. Okay, so just so you can see what I'm seeing, I'm looking right there again, trying to get this nice and tight so that I can line him up right on the center. So I think if I do this, I think I would definitely want to mark those squares with my crosshair square, because I think that would make it a lot easier to see everything. It's worth it. I think so many times markings just make everything faster, and you can mark when you're not tied to the needle. So it's a good idea to do that if you ever need to. Let's do that last one, and then we'll get everybody lined up, and we'll take this off, and I'll show you what we got. So we're checking that space, trying to make sure we can just fit him right in there perfectly. So right here, if I was done, I would tack this off right here in the center, and I would actually just lift everything up and move to the next position. You can even do that little jump stitch if you wouldn't sew through it, but I think these are all linear, so it's a good possibility that you would have to cut your threads between each one so you didn't stitch through them. All right, so let me go ahead and cut that, and then we'll show you what that looks like. And it looks awesome. I love it. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh, can you believe it fits just perfect? I did not plan that, but I thought that it would fit. It looks so good. I love it. I guess I did plan that. I mean, I did practice the design a little bit ahead of time. So let me put my stitching my disc away before he falls off the table. Doesn't that look so cool, you guys? I think it's so pretty. Gives you a very good center detail right here. And then here, you know, I would probably want to frame this out and then fill in the triangles. I really like to put some extra detail right here. So maybe a 1/2 inch would be good right here to echo this and to then complete this. Then you can just leave that open and you can fill this in with piano keys or something like that. That would be so cool. All right, so we said we would do with a option number 2-ish, number 3. We'll do that over here on one side, and then we'll do the other one on the other one because we have space for that, right? Okay, so let me show you the alignment. It's a little bit visual, so you're going to have to just kind of go with me here. If you wanted to mark the center of your circle, you could do that. And what I just really want is I really want this to be even. When I'm aligning the edge of the template, I know that if I line him up, he should be pretty much right at a 1/4 inch bigger than this. So let's make one additional reference mark that I think would be useful. If I have the middle of my 2 circles, if I have a straight line through the middle, that is the pivot, and that tells you where you want to stop. Right? So let's just mark that really quick so you can see what I see. Right there. So if we're doing that echo and we're coming in on either side, this is going to say, okay, that's where we're changing directions. So as I echo in, I'm going to stop when the needle hits right there. So this is an important visual on either direction for me to say that's where I'm going to stop. Okay? So let's go ahead and we'll get that stitched. So I would have to move this each time. I think you guys can see that. Because it's bigger, it's centered on the circle, but it's not going to be centered on both of them. It can't be, just because that's how it is. You know, size-wise, I can't just line up this right on there. He doesn't fit on top of both of them. So I'll line him up right here. I've got that 1/4 inch. You can even use your spacing gauge if you need to. Make sure your ruler is touching, and we'll sew to the pivot line. Okay, and then I should be able to get this guy lined up. Maybe 1 or 2 more stitches, I think. Okay, and then this side will come all the way in, and we'll back up. And I'm leaving that 1/4 inch, right, so that I can get this next one aligned. So I can even have a diagonal right there because that's also the pivot line for this as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll go down to the pivot line. Oh, I forgot to go backwards. Go backwards. Okay, and then we'll go to the pivot line. Okay, and then we should be right in the middle of those 2. And we'll line it right up, and we should be able to get it pretty much on that 1/4 inch. That's what we're looking for. And then this one would go all the way down. It's only the one in the middle that is not going to go all the way in. So I'll just take this off and we'll just show you what this looks like, just this one little section. Okay, and I think that looks so pretty. Don't you think that looks pretty? Maybe it looks like Mickey Mouse. I don't know. So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get some of this little overlapping right here as these cross. So you're going to get a little cross hatching with this one. So let's do the other one where we sew all the way in, and that way we can do just the cross hatching right here on this section.
So Donna asks, what thread are you using?
I am using Fantastico 40 weight polyester. It's a 3-ply polyester. It's made by Superior Threads. It's called Fantastico again, and the color is 5032, and it's one of my absolute favorites. It's just a really vibrant thread. Okay, so let's do this one, and again, we're going to do, instead of just echoing, we don't need a line because we're going to sew all the way in, But we still need the line so we know where to come back to, right? So let's go ahead and we'll just put that in. And I think we can actually do both of them right here. This one and this one at the same time. Imagine that. And then we actually have this center line right there for the diagonal. All right, before I set the needle, let's get the ruler in place. Okay, and we're getting ourselves exactly where we want to. And this time, instead of stopping at the pivot, we're going to sew all the way down, and then we'll come back to the pivot line. So we'll close the design, and we'll come backwards. Okay, now, when I put this next one on, I have to make sure that I go backwards, right? That's the whole thing. So it's one stitch more. Make sure my foot is touching. Go this way. And then we'll touch right here. And we'll come back up. And we'll line this one up. All right, there we go. So again, make sure I'm touching, which I am. Go this way. And we'll come all the way over and back to the pivot line. And then we'll just do the last one. So he's just going to look a little bit different. He's going to have more crossovers each time. And you can decide if you don't want every single crossover. You know, we've crossed over here, here, and here. You can do 2 and skip the center one, whichever one you prefer. But this will just give you a lot more interactive details, so there tends to be a little bit more energy with that one, right? So you're going to get this crossover right here, plus we crossed it over here too. But you could just dip right here and leave this cross out and then cross in the center there like that. So this is one, and then this is the other one. Let me just flip it over so you can just see the difference, and that's the other one. So they're subtle. Those are some subtle differences, but I still think they look pretty cool. Okay, so what do you want me to show you the echo right in here? I think that would be pretty easy, but I can show you that it's going to look amazing if we do it. It really changes, I think, the whole look of the design when you put a frame around stuff. So I would just sew along the edge. Anytime that I needed to travel, and then right here we're kind of in the middle of the space, and we'll just echo. Because this is a 1/2 inch echo, we are on the first reference line. I cannot sew all the way down until I'm touching or until my foot is touching. I need a 1/4 inch of space. So what that amounts to visually is, as you're sewing in, if you're not sure where you need to be, you can do that. Right? You could say, okay, I know I need to sew until I'm a 1/4 inch away. I can put my little spacing gauge right there, and that is my correct spacing right there. Then when I flip it, I'm perfectly positioned for that next space. So if this is the edge of the border, I need to scoot along it until I'm a 1/4 inch away. So visually, I'm going to be looking for the space right here until I can get this realigned. And it looks like I need maybe 1 or 2 more stitches. So this is always good for you to play with that, and you can estimate it. We can always come back in and clean up this straight line later on if we need to. So again, right here, I'll position this ahead of time. Gotta watch my fingers right there. But that can tell me right where I need to be. So that's another way that you can help get that spacing allowance that you need. So let's get lined up. And then here I can just, sew off of the edge. So I'll just take it out so you can see how big of a change that makes. Now that is a pretty simple addition, but I think you'll be shocked and surprised in a good way about how much it adds. I think this type of thing really adds a three-dimensional element to the square. So the square kind of looks pretty, but it looks a little bit flat. So now when we have this frame on both sides, it is going to jump out. It gives it a more dimensional appearance. It's very simple, but it's really powerful. So that's something that you may want to try. And then I'll add one more element on this side that is different than this, and that will be a different option for you that you could use. So within our Rulerwork kit, we have some different curves, right? One is taller and one is shallower. So I thought these would be a really good thing to play with and give you some ideas if you wanted to make swags for different areas. Both of these are pretty wide. They'll definitely span the distance of this. One thing that I want to mention while we're working on that is I think that when you're doing triangles, it can be difficult to get the swag to behave the way you want it. And let me turn that and explain. If I use the same templates on the short leg and on the long leg, they're not going to look the same. This would have to push much further up in to even fit on the longer leg. And that would look, I think, odd. And I don't necessarily want these to overlap. So sometimes it's easier if you decide if you just want to do the swag on this side or if you want to do both of the shorter legs. I think it can work on all three sides, but typically you're going to need a different tool, not the same tool. So right now I'm just going to do the short legs, and then we'll just show you what those look like as double swag. Let's put one of these away so he doesn't fall down. And again, the function of this is it's going to emphasize the center position, and it's going to put a little bit more detail that brings your eye right to this center, because this is where all of our design energy is. This is just auxiliary space. We want people to look at this part. So here I would kind of try to center that, and right here I kind of know when it's centered when I'm right at the 1/4 inch, because I'm the same distance on the other side. Now if I had 3 different arcs that I was using, I could do 1, 2, 3 and get back to here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 is an uneven number, will always bring you forward. But since we just have the 2 from this sampler set, we're going to go ahead and just go one direction, and then we'll just come back the other direction. And that's pretty easy to do unless your quilt is really giant. For most quilts, even a lap quilt, I think this is reasonable. So you can see this one is not a dramatically deep arc right there. He's not huge. He's kind of flattened and cute. It's just going to give us a little bit of energy, kind of round it out a little bit. Softens a lot of the straight lines, and then we'll just do this last one. Okay, and I'm right at my corner. Then I can just get my other one out. So you can see already it's just softening the space a little bit. But notice this one is plenty big enough, and he's going to give us a nice deeper arc. So we don't need him to be gigantic. Even this much is going to be a 1/2 inch, because this is about a 1/4 inch where he is right now. And let's just keep going. We'll just add the next one. So one of the things I like about the fact that these are both kind of shallow is that they're not going to cross over each other in the center. And I'll show you that right here. Let's turn this really quick. See right here how even as this comes in, this is essentially the center line. So they're not going to create a lot of interference right here with one overlapping the other. Sometimes if it's too roundy round and it crosses the center position right here, if your arc would cross the midline right here like that, then it's going to end up going around like that, and you're going to get this little overlappy thing in the center. So you can choose that. It's okay to have that, but just know that anything that crosses the center position, that is going to require that overlapping design. Okay? All right, let's put these last two in, and then we'll just show you what it looks like. These kind of swags for me, I think they are terrific for putting piano keys in right along the outer edge. Okay, and we'll do the last one. So, do you think that any of this is too hard for you to sew so far? What we've shown you, do you think anything is too complicated? Or do you feel like maybe if you just did one little piece at a time that you'd be able to do it? Because that's really what we're going for. We're trying to show you how you can get a little bit more of a complicated look, but not necessarily more complicated sewing. So let's cut some of these threads because we have a lot of threads everywhere. So we're doing progressive layering with somewhat simple concepts and somewhat simple designs, but they're going to allow you to get that really creative, overlapping, a little bit more complex look to your design that you may want to have and felt like maybe you couldn't get before. All right. So Mary says she thinks it's doable. Okay, so here's the last one that we just did. I'll turn it this way so you could see it. Doesn't that look so cool? And then if this was the end, just putting straight parallel lines right down here, and you don't even have to sew on the curve. Here's how you would do it. You would sew down and up to the line and go over, down and up and over, down and up until you touch like this. So all of your piano keys will be double stitched, but you won't have any weird stitching right here. And then when you're done with your piano keys, you could just come back and double stitch this line and clean up all the edges right there, and it would look amazing. So that would be just another idea for you as far as designs. So it's 4 o'clock. I have one more. This one I think is a little bit more work, but I still like it. All right, we're going to use this one right here. If you have any of these type of circles on quilts that have the straight line effect, I think that you could use that. This one has a nice straight line connection right here. This is a straight line and this is a straight line, and they meet at a single point right up here. So I'm going to show you, first we're going to just do the one side of it on this, and then we're going to do the other side, and then we're going to show you how we merge the designs, okay? All right, so it's really good if you have one that has that line already on it. You'll see I have to fudge it a little bit because my line is maybe not so perfect. So within this design, one of the unique features of it is you can essentially make it whatever your border width is. You're not confined, like we had to use the 4-inch square with the 2-inch circle. This one, I can make it wider, narrower, whatever, as long as I can fit this on however many times. So this is regular width is 5.5. So that's 2 3/4 is this entire design is going to sew out. So I need 2 3/4 on the other side plus whatever space I want in the middle. So this would fill a pretty good size border. So let me show you my little drawing here. See if I can find it. Here it is. It's kind of messy, but I'll show you anyway. This is where we're going. And if this is too much, then you could change the spacing, right? So the center line is just because that's where the border is. You know, we needed that visual, but I don't need a line in the middle actually. We're just using the bottom, and we're stacking this right along as we go. and I'll show you how to do it. And then what we're doing with the other side is we're offsetting it so this triangle fills this V right there. But you could also do them aligned the same. You don't have to stagger them, but that's what we're choosing. So again, feel like you could make whatever changes that you want to make. You have that freedom. Okay, so we'll start with a little B right there, and we'll just do this little arc. And this will be our boundary. So we'll just come back to B and then line it up right at A. And we're going to sew all the way along and touch and come back to B. If I wanted to change the spacing of this design, I could, but I would end up with more of this design. Right now, this is spacing it perfectly for me. So we won't do a million of these. I think we'll do maybe like 6 or 8 of these. So I'm at A, and now I'm going to sew to B, and I can just sew around and get it aligned perfectly. Because we're using the markings that are already on this template, it's keeping our spacing the same, or pretty close. It should anyway. I don't know. With me, I feel like spacing always goes awry, right? So we're at B. Let's make sure we're at B. And then we'll just scoot over to A, and we're lining this up on the line. So again, this isn't a complicated design. We're using the template, basically how it's already designed. We're just going from A to B, and then we're sewing up and touching and back to our boundary line. So this way the boundary is going to get stitched in at the same time. So if you had a ditch down there at the bottom, you could just align it easily on the ditch, and you'd be able to sew the whole ditch for that boundary, and then keep moving along. So I think we'll do maybe 2 more, just because we want a little bit of room to let the design show itself. Sometimes if you just do 1 or 2, I don't think you get the impact of the design. And then you could just keep going essentially until you fall off the edge of your border. Or, you know, if your border just ends, then you would just make as many of these as you can, and when you got to the straight line, you would just sew down the straight line and fill in as many pieces of it as you needed until it's evenly spaced and completely filled. Okay. All right, so let's take it off. I'll just let you see what you see so far. So you'd think as long as these templates have been around that there would be no new designs with them, that every design would be already figured out, found out, whatever. But it's how we integrate them together that makes them different. So right now we need to put some reference lines on there, and we maybe don't have to do every one, but maybe every other one, because what happens is if we don't line them up as we go, the design is going to start getting off. So let's go ahead and make some of those reference lines. I think you guys see pretty often that I'm always making some kind of marking. So this line and this line right here, we can use both of those to get us aligned. This is keeping us straight through the center, and this is going to square us up to the next line for that design. So we'll skip one and we'll go to the next one. And I guess we'll do this one right here. Okay, so now we want to put this center position of this design aligned right on those lines as we go, and we're going to go that way. So I appreciate the very kind comment that I'm good at designing. And I know that that is not the strength that everybody has. I mean, I think that that's part of the interesting part of quilting is there's so many different things that we can do. And I think if you're a real quilter, you maybe like these two areas, but you really hate that other area. And that's why you have quilts in your closet, because we don't all like all the parts of it equally. And that's true, I think, with everybody. So if you can try to maximize the areas that you're good at and try to shift your design so that it fits the areas that you really like, then that helps you move through the project. And it's not that you should never challenge yourself, but it's okay if you do what you like. There's no rule that says you have to do that other really complicated thing that you really don't want to do. So nobody's going to make you. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll get lined up. So we are going to use the same lines, and if this right here is the pivot right there, so we do want to be lined up on that. So this center line right there, that's what we're looking for, right? So let's just scoot it down a little bit because we've got this. I should have made them a little longer too, but once we get going, it won't matter. Right there. I'm going to try and put my needle right in that mark where I'm at, because that's what we want, ideally. All right, just get my needle started right there, and we'll get these threads out of here. So the very tip right there, he should just fit right down in that space. And here, if I needed to, I would go down the other direction until I closed that border, because this is like a baby one. He may have to stitch a little bit first on that first one in order to finish out to the edge of the border. And that's normal, that's okay. Even if he had to go quite a bit further, it would be fine. So then here, let's scoop these threads out of our way. Get us lined right up on the center line right here. And we kind of want to look that this is aligning centered. You know, use that visual information to help you get connected. And then we can make an adjustment on the next one if we needed to. Okay, and we'll scoot over, and he lines right up on that alignment line, just like we want him to, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Now, what if they were out of alignment? Who cares? You can make them not line up at all if you want to. It's totally up to you. You're in charge. Don't let anybody else tell you different. If you want to just put it on there and just go to town, go ahead. There's no rule that says they have to match. The reason that we're making them offset like that is we're going to create an additional design that will benefit if they are aligned. So if you're not doing that, then it doesn't really matter. If they're not touching, it's okay. Okay, and we'll just keep scooting across, and we'll do those last two. So you can see that the space that I have in the middle of mine is not going to be that big. There's not a big gap in between. So then I can decide how many lines do I want to have in order to put fill in the middle. You know, I'm going to evaluate the space that I have, and I can decide, do I want to have double echoes, single line, in the middle of everybody? I can make those choices. You can make those choices. Okay, let's pull it off, and I'll just show you where we're at. It would look a lot different if they were matching than right now with the offset. So let's just talk about that before we add the next piece, so you can talk about what you may want to do in terms of your design decisions. All right, so we have, I'm going to call it the Charlie Brown look, right? Because we offset it, we are creating that chevron impact right there. That's going to allow us to put that zigzag in there. If these were matching, we would have more like a diamond, because this would align with this. You would get more like a diamond look, and you could actually put a center line and you could make connected diamonds through the center if they were all lined up. That's another option for you. Somebody just asked, Becky, you asked where you could purchase. So there is a purchase link in the header for this. You can go to sewsteady.com using that link, and this is the Rulerwork Kit, which has quite a few pieces. And if you want to start a little bit smaller, you could get the sampler set. In order to do any of these, the basic thing is you must have an appropriate ruler foot for your machine. So that is very important. You can't do ruler work without an appropriate ruler foot. The ruler foot is this 1/2 inch circle. It has a very tall side wall, and the needle has to be able to be centered left to right on the foot and front to back so that the spacing is even. That's really, really important. So anyway, we've got our cute little space right here. So let's measure it. Let's see what we got. Let me show you something cool, right? I can put this on here like this, right? And I could sew this echo just with this tool right here. Can you believe that? That'd be so cool. Let's get our spacing gauge out. If that wasn't precise enough for you, you can just use a straight line. What you need here is you need the 1/2 inch on this side and the 1/2 inch on this side, and you essentially need these reference lines, the center lines, because again, those are the pivot lines. So let's go ahead and actually just put in some more. I think that'll just make it easier visually to show us where our alignments are. Okay, so we're pretty good. We did a good job. We lined up nice. That's a lot of work to put all those lines in though, huh? Yeah, it is, but that's okay. You guys have learned that I'm willing to do whatever the work is that is required to get the result I want, right? If I want it to be precise, then I'm willing to put some markings in there to make it be precise. Oh, this one's a little cattywampus. We'll have to fudge him a little bit. I love that word. Whoever created that is a good use of language. All right, and then here I'll just put this last one in there. Okay, so you can see now we got our lines. We could actually put these straight lines in too, and we could do the chevrons. But what we'll do is we'll do a 1/2 inch echo on each side, and then if we want to do something else, you guys can let me know if you want to do something else. Okay, we'll use our 12 inch arc on one side, and then we'll use that, where did he go? He's hiding. There he is. Okay. And then you'll just see like which one you think is easier. We'll just give you some options that way. So right now what we're trying to do is use the foot as a guide, okay? Because we're just doing the 1/4 inch for each side. So that's a 1/2 inch, right? It's a 1/2 inch space when I line up the template on the outside. If I line this up on the inside, it's just with the edge of the ruler touching. So we'll do this side first. I'll show you the alignment real quick. So my needle's in, my foot is going to touch that stitch line right there, okay? And I'm going to sew up to the pivot, and then just put this at the back, maybe one more stitch, and get them lined up. Sew down until your foot touches, and then just sew up. I think I'm missing the center line here. There we go. So this doesn't require a lot of turning of the quilt. You could align your quilt pretty easily, and you'd just be able to move the ruler front to back. So if you're working on a big piece, this is not that difficult. Is that a large border? I mean, you'd have to move that ruler quite a few times. So here's a good idea for you. If you want to fill your border faster, if you had a bigger template that would take up more space, Like this is the 5.5 inch of the Circles on Quilts 36, but you could use a bigger Circles on Quilts 36. We have the ones all the way up to, 9.5, 11.5. There's bigger ones because this has a set that has multiple sizes. So that could be an option too. If you wanted to use a bigger template, it will fill your border up a little bit faster. So we'll come to this line on the end here, and then we'll just sew down until the foot touches the other side. Right here. And that's the same spacing right here with the foot touching. And then we'll put this template on, and I'll show you how we can do it with this as well. So there's lots of different ways to get the same results. The difference that we are going to do on here, this is an inside template, and we'll be able to sew 2 directions at a time without moving the template because it has the angle right there. And the one thing that we'll have to be aware of is we have a different visual spacing, okay, when we're doing this one. So let me turn it so I could show you what I want to show you. This way. I think that's probably best. Okay, so we would still want to line it up on this line that's in the middle. And what we're looking for is the 1/2 inch spacing on both sides. So the lines that we already drew are going to let us easily do both sides. One, and down till we're touching, and then scoot over, line it up on the center line, and then get it lined up right in between both of them until we're touching, and scoot it over. And then visually, it's about 1 finger space. That's what you're looking for right here, is this at the 1/2 inch. That is going to give you your perfect 1/4 inch spacing because the needle is in the center of the foot, right? So we'll just keep doing it, and you can see that this is actually going to go a lot faster than the way we did it before. I think I would do it this way if I was going to do it again. I like that this is a lot faster. What do you think? Maybe not as accurate, but I still like it. It's faster. Faster is good. All right, so we're pretty much done. I'm going to just tack it off real quick. "50 ways to leave your lover." I'm never leaving my lover. He's too good. Honey is a peach. I'm keeping him forever. If he dies before me, I'll kill him. All right, let's see. Here we go. So, there's lots of different options for you to do whatever you think is best. Oh, I'm dropping things. Okay, now I know that looks so busy, right? It totally does. So give me just a second. I'm going to flip it over and make sure that you can see the back so you can get the full value. All right. Doesn't that look so cool? It looks just like it did on the paper, right? Marilyn. I try to have fun. Having fun is what quilting is all about. Making things beautiful and having a good time. So you can see that creates a lot of texture, and you can change the width. Like if we wanted a little bit more open, we could push these further apart. And honestly, this would actually fit, the tip of this would fit right in the other side. So if you wanted no gap, you could literally make this the tip of the other one. You would just align this a 1/4 inch above, and you'd be able to sew your whole little arc all the way across, and there would be no space in between. So that would be another option for you. I'll just lay that on there so you can see what I mean. If I stitched it, I did the one side and I came back. If I did it like this and I had this aligned, right against the tip right there, then this right here, when we sewed that in, you could just have these be the exact match. There would be no gap right here, and then there'd be no need for a fill. Another fill that works great in here is the straight lines, right? So you could sew down until you touch, and then scoot over at an angle, sew up, then sew down straight, and then go across. So you could basically put like a straight line fill, and you could use these as the travel lines between those straight lines. And then you could make a wider spacing. This is kind of tight. This is a little bit busy. If you wanted something more open, you could do a 1/2 inch fill or a 3/4 inch fill and just continue moving the space down as you felt like it. or you could do it from tip to tip, you know, from here, then up, make it touch, come down and up, make it touch, come down and up, make it touch. You could use the design itself to tell you where you wanted those connecting straight lines to be. So there's just so many options for you. So I hope that you enjoyed today. That's pretty much what I had. I had those 2 additional border options, and just wanted to show you that even though that is a set that's been around for a really long time, you can do so many things. Okay, now we're just going to do one quick extend your knowledge, right? So we have a lot of different quilt collections, right? So you guys all know that I'm the Fun and Fancy girl, so I have the Fun and Fancy collection. Well, look it. This is the same size as that Circles on Quilts number 36. Like the spacing of this is the size. So I can do a similar type of design with this. It's a little not as wide here, but if I had a bigger one, a bigger Spinifex, I can do a bigger design. And this is a Circles on Quilts, which would be a little different than this, but it could be very similar. You know, it's the same tallness. This one is 7.5, so you'd get a larger border. So you could have these stacked this way and the other ones aligned right in the middle. So they would have the other ones aligned right in the middle. What a great idea. That would look so pretty, right? And then instead of the circles, we could do some kind of ovals. This is 1.5. So this would give us a little steeper stack. So then we could do, you know, a 3-inch square with this type of shape, or we could do a shallow space like this. This is 3 inches, and we could just put one shallow arc along your square instead of the doubles like we did. So many great ideas. Just play. Have a good time. Anyway, it is time for class to end. So I hope you've had a really great time and learned some things. Let me know. We always really appreciate it if you could like, comment, and share. That way they know that the material that I'm providing is good quality or something like that. And so if you would be willing to share that, I would appreciate it very much. No pressure, you know, I'm not too worried about it either way. But I appreciate it, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Have a good weekend. Happy quilting. We'll see you next time. Remember that the second Sunday of the month is my long arm event. So that is coming up next Sunday. I still try to provide design information that is good for everybody, but I will be sharing it on a long arm. So there'll be a little bit of difference in how the information is presented. Okay, have a great day, and I will say goodbye.